Imagine trying to take an X-ray of a heartbreak.
Wow. Yeah, that's a vivid image.
Right. Because it sounds completely impossible. Emotion is just, it's inherently messy.
Very miss.
It's subjective, it's invisible, it's constantly shifting around. Like, if you break your arm, the X-ray gives you this very clear, jagged white line. It's binary.
You're broken or it's not.
Exactly. But when you step into the world of human emotion or, creativity, songwriting, suddenly that X-ray machine seems completely useless.
Because you can't exactly map the structural integrity of a nostalgic memory.
No. Or like, what's the exact load-bearing capacity of a profound sense of loss? You can't measure it.
Right. Usually. Anyway.
Usually. But what if an artificial intelligence could do that?
Now that is the real question.
What if a machine could just look at decades of country and pop music and casually hand you the exact structural blueprint of how artists manufacture human empathy?
It's a crazy thought.
It is, but today we actually have our hands on exactly that blueprint. So if you are the kind of person who loves to unpack the architecture of creativity.
Our fellow learners out there.
Yes, exactly. If you want to know how the engine of a great song actually works, but you don't want to get bogged down reading some dense manual full of industry jargon, you are in the exact right place.
Absolutely.
Because we are doing a deep dive into a source document today that is, frankly, it's mind-bending.
It truly is mind-bending.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so we're looking at a log from the Gemini AI model.
Right.
And this was saved via a platform called Cortex on March 30, 2026.
Okay.
And the context here is just so crucial. A user approached this AI not to ask it to write a song.
Which is what everyone does, right? Write me a song about my dog.
Right, exactly. But this user asked it to perform a highly sophisticated, multi-layered analysis into the songwriting style and narrative voice of three very specific musical titans.
Right, and we're talking about Kacey Musgraves, Taylor Swift, and Rodney Crowell.
Yes. And the AI didn't just spit back, a basic Wikipedia-style summary. It generated this highly structured 8-point research plan.
Wow.
I mean, it basically created an architectural framework for deconstructing modern musical storytelling.
Which is just such a bizarre and fascinating collision of worlds, if you think about it.
Oh, totally.
You have the cold, calculating, hyper-logical processing power of a machine directly analyzing the warm, subjective, deeply human art of writing a song.
It's like analyzing the exact chemical makeup of a teardrop.
Yeah. And we aren't just going to read you this list today. We are going to use this AI-generated blueprint to explore the very anatomy of modern songwriting.
We're getting to the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. We are going to look at the exact metrics, the motifs, the structural mechanics, and the historical lineages that the AI identified as absolutely crucial to understanding these three artists.
And comparing Musgraves, Swift, and Crowell, it offers this incredibly perfect cross-section.
Right, because they're so different.
Exactly. You have totally different generations, entirely different genre boundaries, and vastly different relationships with the public eye.
Yet this AI categorized all of them as master architects of narrative.
It did. And the overarching mission for our deep dive today is to really understand how art is built.
Yes.
When we listen to a song that moves us, it feels like magic, right? It feels completely spontaneous.
It's like it just fell out of the sky.
Exactly. But what this research plan reveals is that behind that magic is a rigorous, almost scientific set of choices.
Right. And understanding those choices, like seeing the invisible scaffolding, it doesn't ruin the magic at all. It actually elevates it.
I completely agree. So the AI begins this massive undertaking by establishing what it calls the foundation of narrative voice.
Because before we can even look at the lyrics or the melodies, we really have to understand the specific voices delivering them.
Right. Who is actually speaking to you through the speakers.
Exactly. So let's start with the first point. The AI categorizes Kacey Musgraves in this highly specific, seemingly contradictory way. It points out her blend of traditional country with psychedelic and pop influences. But the real anchor, the key phrase it uses to describe her narrative voice is observational, conversational.
Which is such an interesting pairing of words.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it also highlights her use of social commentary. Now, okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Let's do it.
Blending traditional country, which usually brings to mind a very grounded, earthy, acoustic sound.
Very rootsy.
Yeah. Blending that with psychedelic influences, which implies something mind-altering, kaleidoscopic, detached from reality. I mean, that sounds like a chaotic image.
It sounds like a total clash.
Right. And if you pair that sonic chaos with a voice that is delivering heavy social commentary, it feels like it should just be completely overwhelming for the listener.
Like sensory overload.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the AI uses the word conversational. So I'm picturing a camera here. Is her style essentially like a wide-angle documentary lens set up on a front porch?
Oh, that front porch visualization captures the psychology of her approach perfectly. Yeah. Because let's consider what a traditional country song often does. It acts as a tight, intimate close-up.
Okay, right.
It's the solitary figure on a bar stool, the tear falling into the glass of whiskey.
Very hyper-focused.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It is hyper-focused on a singular, grounded, emotional event.
Yeah.
Psychedelic music, conversely, is like an out-of-focus tracking shot of the cosmos.
Right.
It's expansive, it's overwhelming, it's deliberately untethered from gravity.
Floating away.
Right.
Oh.
So if you simply smash those two sonic landscapes together, the listener's brain gets confused. You induce a sort of auditory vertigo.
You'd feel like you were floating away into space, but someone keeps trying to hand you a beer.
Exactly. It just doesn't compute.
It doesn't.
And that is exactly where the observational, conversational narrative voice becomes the masterstroke.
How so?
The human brain needs an anchor to process complex or abstract auditory information. When someone speaks to you in a conversational tone, using everyday vernacular, maintaining a relaxed cadence, maybe throwing in a bit of deadpan humor, your nervous system relaxes.
Oh, I see.
You feel safe. You feel like you are literally just sitting on that front porch next to a friend who is simply pointing things out to you.
And because she's sitting next to you, not standing at a podium hovering above you, your cognitive defense is just naturally lower.
Precisely. The conversational tone is the tether. Because your guard is down, because you feel grounded by her casual delivery, the musical backdrop behind her can afford to expand infinitely.
Wow.
She can bring in those shimmering, echoing psychedelic synthesizers or those massive, bright pop hooks, and the song doesn't float away into the stratosphere.
Because she's holding the string to the balloon.
Yes, her voice is the gravity keeping the entire arrangement rooted to the earth.
So the casual conversation is literally a mechanism for musical expansion. That makes so much sense. But wait, what about the social commentary the AI flagged?
Right, that's the other piece of the puzzle.
Because usually when an artist decides they're going to deliver social commentary, the music gets very heavy, very serious.
It turns into a lecture.
Exactly. And let's be honest, as listeners, the moment we feel like a song is trying to scold us or teach us a moral lesson, we instinctively reach for the skip button.
Oh, 100%. We don't like being lectured in our free time.
We really don't.
Which is why delivering social commentary through an observational conversational lens is essentially a psychological Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse. I love that.
Think about it. If a songwriter uses a grandiose, booming, authoritative voice to critique society, it demands compliance. It separates the artist from the audience.
Right. The artist is suddenly the teacher and the listener is the student. It's alienating.
It creates a hierarchy.
It does.
But when Musgraves uses a conversational voice, she completely eliminates the hierarchy.
Yeah.
She isn't preaching at you from a mountaintop. She's looking through that wide-angle documentary lens and simply nudging you, saying, hey, isn't it weird that we do this?
Or look at how strange the societal habit is.
Exactly. By framing the commentary as a shared, casual observation, the listener feels included in the critique rather than targeted by it.
That is so smart.
It's an incredibly sophisticated psychological trick wrapped in a deeply approachable package. She smuggles heavy societal critiques and complex, mind-bending psychedelic arrangements right past our defenses by simply talking to us like we've known her for years.
A psychedelic Trojan horse built out of traditional country wood. That is a brilliant way to establish a narrative voice.
It really is.
But Musgrave's power lies in looking outward, right? Observing the world. The AI immediately pivots in its research plan to Taylor Swift, completely changing the architectural strategy.
A totally different approach.
Right, because if Musgraves is the wide-angle conversationalist, the AI presents Swift as the confessional architect.
The confessional architect, I like that.
Yeah, and the prompt specifically instructs an analysis of her songwriting evolution, highlighting her use of highly detailed confessional storytelling.
Which is what she's famous for.
Exactly. But the part that absolutely stopped me in my tracks was the AI specifically pointing out the structural importance of bridges and how her narrative voice has matured from adolescent romance to complex adult themes.
Now, What's fascinating here is that in a broad multi-artist AI query, the fact that the algorithm drilled down into a specific anatomical section of a song, the bridge, reveals something vital about her methodology.
It really does.
It signifies that the bridge isn't just a musical interlude for her. It is the core engine of her narrative style.
Right, because functionally, I mean, every pop song has a bridge. It's the standard formula. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out.
Standard operating procedure.
Right. It's supposed to be just a little musical detour to keep the listener from getting bored before the final hook. But the AI is flagging her bridges as the absolute cornerstone of her confessional style.
Yeah.
It feels like if the verses are setting the table and the chorus is the meal, the bridge is the moment she flips the entire table over.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it.
Yeah.
I mean, to understand why, we have to look at the psychology of a confession.
Okay, let's do it.
In confessional storytelling, the bridge is the plot twist. It is the narrative fulcrum. Let's break down the architecture of a standard confessional song. In the verses, you are the meticulous scene setter. You are laying out the highly detailed facts the AI mentioned, the exact time of day, the specific color of the scarf left at the house, the precise cutting phrase someone used in an argument.
Right, you're building the set.
The verses build the physical reality of the memory. Then you hit the chorus. The chorus is the core emotion. It's the thesis statement.
It's that intrusive thought you can't get out of your head, the feeling that just loops over and over.
Exactly. It's static. A verse builds, a chorus loops.
Okay, I see.
If a song only had verses and choruses, it would essentially be a diary entry. It would perfectly describe a state of being, but it wouldn't move.
It would just sit there.
But a confessional architect needs movement, any momentum, into the bridge. Musically, a bridge is designed to disrupt. It introduces a totally new chord progression, a different melody, a sudden shift in rhythm or tempo. It shatters the hypnotic loop of the verse-chorus pattern.
It forces the brain to wake up and pay attention because the pattern just broke.
Yes, it induces a moment of cognitive dissonance. And narratively, for a songwriter like Swift, that musical disruption perfectly mirrors an emotional revelation.
Oh, wow.
The bridge is the exact moment the narrator's perspective fractures. It's the moment they realize their own complicity in the heartbreak, or the moment blinding anger suddenly hollows out into profound, quiet sadness.
Which connects perfectly to the AI's note about her evolving from adolescent romance to complex adult themes.
Exactly.
Because when we are adolescents, we tend to view the world in very binary terms. Good guys and bad guys. You broke my heart, therefore you are the villain and I am the victim.
Very black and white.
Right, and the verse and the chorus are perfectly suited for adolescent black and white thinking. Here's what you did, and here's how sad I am.
But adulthood isn't binary.
No. Adulthood is realizing that two contradictory things can be true at once. Adulthood is a gray area.
You've hit on the exact genius of the structure there. The bridge is the architectural embodiment of adulthood.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You walk into the bridge with one understanding of the relationship, usually the black and white verse-chorus understanding, and you walk out of the bridge with a deeper, more complicated, often more painful realization.
The bridge literally bridges the gap between the adolescent assumption and the adult reality.
Exactly. It elevates the song from a static complaint into a dynamic, structured narrative arc. The narrator evolves in real time within the span of those 8 bars of music.
That is wild. So we have Musgraves using the psychology of conversation to ground expansive ideas, and Swift using the very architecture of pop music to force an emotional evolution on the listener.
2 masterful but very different approaches.
Right. And this brings us to the third artist in the AI's blueprint, and honestly the one that introduces the most fascinating paradox of all, Rodney Crowell.
Yes. The literary outlaw.
Exactly. The AI mandates an investigation into his literary approach to songwriting, examining his specific place within the Americana and outlaw country movements.
Right.
And it describes his signature narrative voice as being characterized by poetic realism and introspective maturity. Now, I have to challenge this terminology.
Oh?
Yeah, because poetic realism in the context of the outlaw movement. That sounds like a massive oxymoron to me.
Let's explore the friction there. Why does it feel contradictory to you?
Because an outlaw, by definition, is a myth. When we think of the outlaw country movement, we think of larger-than-life characters.
Sure, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson.
Exactly. We think of rebellion, riding off into the sunset, consequence-free living, train robberies, and eternal freedom. It is an inherently romanticized, mythologized concept.
It's cinematic.
Yes. But realism is the exact opposite. Realism implies gravity. It implies the morning after the bender. It implies waking up with a bad back, an empty bank account, and alienating your family.
The not-so-glamorous reality.
Right. So how can an artist exist as a poetic realist and an outlaw at the identical moment?
That exact contradiction is what makes Crowell's inclusion in this AI blueprint so pivotal.
Okay, lay it on me.
To understand his voice, we have to briefly look at what the outlaw movement was actually reacting against. In the 1960s and 70s, the dominant force was the Nashville sound.
Which was very produced, right?
Highly produced. This was an industry machine that produced highly polished, heavily orchestrated, squeaky clean music. It was rhinestones and lush string sections. It presented a sanitized, highly supervised version of reality.
Got it.
The outlaw movement, spearheaded by artists demanding creative control, was a violent rejection of that polish. They wanted grit. They wanted to write about drinking, fighting, and life on the margins.
But even that grit can become its own kind of cartoon, right? If you just write about bar fights all day, you're just trading a rhinestone suit for a leather jacket. It's still a costume.
Which is exactly where Crowell's introspective maturity comes in. If the original outlaw movement rebelled against the polished Nashville machine, Crowell essentially rebelled against the outlaw myth itself by refusing to romanticize it.
Oh.
He brought a novelist's eye to a cowboy's world. If Taylor Swift's voice is evolving in real time from adolescence to adulthood, Rodney Crowell's voice is already sitting firmly in deep adulthood, looking backward with a weary, knowing eye.
So he is actively stripping away the cheap veneer of the rebellion.
He is. He takes the tropes of the outlaw movement, the hard living, the endless highway, and he subjects them to a grueling, realistic lens.
Can you give me an example?
Well, a standard performative outlaw song might be a loud, raucous anthem about drinking away your sorrows and getting into a brawl. It's designed to elicit cheers.
Right. People clinking glasses.
Exactly. Crowell's poetic realism approach would be to bypass the brawl entirely and write a devastatingly quiet song about the profound, suffocating loneliness of the drive home from that bar.
Oof. Yeah, that hits different. It's realism because it confronts the actual mundane consequences of the lifestyle, the rust, the decay, the isolation.
But it remains poetic because he utilizes a highly refined literary approach. He doesn't just bluntly state the facts of the hangover. He uses careful word choice, intricate character studies, and nuanced metaphors to elevate that mundane grit into high art.
He makes it beautiful.
Exactly. He gives the outlaw movement a literary gravitas. He proves that you don't have to rely on cheap shock value or cartoonish rebellion to be authentic. You can simply tell the unvarnished, complicated truth about human failing.
It requires an immense amount of introspective maturity to realize that the myth you are participating in is exhausting, and to then turn around and articulate that exhaustion beautifully.
It really does.
I mean, this AI is frighteningly perceptive. In just its opening steps, it has handed us 3 completely distinct archetypes for how to communicate with the listener. The wide-angle observational conversationalist, the inward-looking confessional architect, and the backward-reflecting literary outlaw.
It's a masterclass in narrative framing.
But knowing who is speaking is only half the battle. The AI demands we understand how they are physically building these songs. Which brings us to the next massive phase of the research plan. The toolkit.
Yes, the toolkit. The AI explicitly instructs. For each songwriter, identifies specific lyrical motifs, recurring themes such as small-town life, celebrity, Texas roots, and the technical literary devices they frequently employ, including internal rhyme or extended metaphors.
I love that we are getting into the nuts and bolts here.
Me too.
But before we look at the specific examples, let's separate the tools. The AI distinguishes between technical devices and lyrical motifs.
Right.
If we are using an architectural metaphor, would you say that technical devices like internal rhyme are essentially the invisible load-bearing walls of the song, while motifs like small-town life are the paint, the wallpaper, the interior design?
That is the absolute perfect way to delineate them. The motif is what the song is ostensibly about on the surface. It is the setting, the subject matter, the aesthetic environment you walk into.
The flavor.
Exactly. The technical device, however, is the underlying physics that keeps the structure from collapsing on your head.
Okay, let's examine the physics first.
Let's do it.
The AI flags internal rhyme as a crucial device. Now, we all know what basic rhyme is. The end of line A rhymes with the end of line B. It's the foundation of poetry.
Cat, hat, bat.
Right. So why would an AI specifically highlight internal rhyme as a hallmark of elite songwriting, especially when we think back to Musgraves' conversational style?
Well, To understand the power of internal rhyme, you have to understand how the human brain processes rhythm and predictability. Standard end rhyme, where only the last word of a line rhymes with the last word of the next line, creates a very rigid metronomic cadence. A, B, A, B.
Right.
It is incredibly predictable.
It sounds like a nursery rhyme. I went to the store, I walked through the door, it just sort of plods along.
Exactly. It plods. It is safe, and frankly, it is entirely unnatural. When human beings speak to each other in normal conversation, we do not speak in predictable plodding blocks.
We're much messier than that.
Exactly. We speak with varied cadences, rushed thoughts, hesitations, and tumbling rhythms. If a songwriter, particularly an observational conversationalist like Musgraves, relies solely on end rhymes, the illusion of a casual conversation shatters instantly.
Because it sounds too perfect.
Right. The listener's brain recognizes the rigid structure and categorizes it as a performance, not a chat.
The scaffolding becomes visible, and it ruins the trick.
Precisely. Internal rhyme solves this cognitive problem. Internal rhyme occurs when a word within the middle of a line rhymes with another word in the middle of the same line or the middle of the next.
Okay.
It creates a propulsive cascading effect. It speeds up the pacing of a lyric without necessarily speeding up the tempo of the music.
So instead of a slow pendulum swinging back and forth at the end of every sentence, it's like a stone skipping rapidly across the water.
Yes, that's exactly it. It mimics the breathless, organic rush of a human thought. It allows a songwriter to pack an enormous amount of lyrical information or social commentary into a tight musical space while making it sound entirely effortless. The listener doesn't consciously hear the internal rhymes ticking away. They just subconsciously register that the lyric is flowing with an incredibly natural conversational momentum. The internal rhyme is the invisible physics engine that makes the front porch illusion possible.
That is deeply fascinating. It literally manipulates the listener's nervous system into feeling momentum.
It's brilliant.
So the other major structural device the AI points out is the extended metaphor. I instantly map this onto Taylor Swift and her confessional architect persona.
Oh, absolutely. That's her bread and butter.
But I have a fundamental question about confessions here.
Okay.
If you are trying to be deeply confessional, if you are trying to tell the listener your most painful secrets, shouldn't you just tell the literal truth? Why go through the exhausting effort of building an extended metaphor?
Because the literal truth is usually a terrible storyteller.
Really?
Yes. The literal truth is often emotionally flat. If a songwriter simply says, "My relationship ended, it was very painful, and I am sad," they are conveying absolute factual truth, but they are not conveying emotional truth.
Because I'm just hearing facts.
Exactly. The listener hears the facts, but they don't feel the pain. They're just looking at a photograph of an event.
Right. I understand that you are sad, but my heart isn't breaking for you.
An extended metaphor changes the medium from a photograph to a full sensory virtual reality simulation.
Oh, I like that.
An extended metaphor takes a single conceptual comparison and rigorously stretches it across multiple verses, choruses, and bridges. If a songwriter compares a failing relationship to a slowly sinking ship, they don't just use the metaphor once and abandon it.
They build the whole boat.
As an architect, they build the entire vessel. The first verse details the initial, ignored leak in the hull. The chorus describes the rising water and the panic on the deck. And that crucial disruptive bridge we talked about.
Yeah.
That becomes the exact visceral moment the cold water pulls the narrator under.
So the extended metaphor provides a massive structural framework for the artist to hang all of those highly detailed observations on. It gives the listener an environment to step inside of.
Precisely.
I mean, I can't relate to the specific billionaire-level heartbreak of a global pop star, but I absolutely understand the terrifying feeling of being trapped on a sinking ship.
Everyone understands that.
Right. The metaphor translates the hyper-specific, alienating personal experience into a universal physical sensation.
It is the ultimate tool for generating empathy.
Yeah.
It proves that sometimes you have to use a carefully constructed fiction, a metaphor, to make the listener truly feel the absolute reality of your confession.
Which perfectly transitions us from the physics of the song to the interior design. The paint and the wallpaper, the lyrical motifs.
Those are the thematic elements.
The AI specifically chose to highlight small-town life, celebrity, and Texas roots. Now, when I look at that list, I get cognitive whiplash.
It is a jarring combination.
Yeah. How do Texas roots and the surreal concept of celebrity coexist in a unified research plan? Are we just looking at the starting line and the finish line of an artist's career?
We're actually looking at a deliberately engineered narrative friction. Let's examine the psychological weight of those motifs. in the realms of country, Americana, and even the origins of modern pop, small-town life, and Texas roots, function as a universal shorthand for authenticity.
They represent the origin point.
Exactly. The small-town motif signals to the listener, I know who I am grounded, I understand the value of hard work, community, and basic human truth.
It's the front porch again. It's the anchor.
Exactly. It establishes trust. The listener believes the narrator is fundamentally one of them. But what happens when the person sitting on that porch achieves massive global fame?
They are violently dragged off the porch into a world the rest of us will never experience.
Right. Enter the celebrity motif. Celebrity is the absolute psychological antithesis of the small town. It is alienating, it is inherently surreal, it is built on artifice, and it completely isolates the individual from everyday human reality.
So if an artist suddenly starts writing exclusively about the celebrity motif, about walking red carpets, dodging paparazzi, or the isolation of massive wealth, they run a massive risk.
A huge risk.
The listener's going to reject it. We can't relate to the tragedy of having too many platinum records. It sounds completely out of touch.
It shatters the empathy the artist works so hard to build. And this is where the genius of combining these contradictory motifs comes into play.
How do they balance it?
By utilizing both motifs simultaneously, the songwriter creates a profound thematic tension. They don't write about celebrity in a vacuum. They write about the disorienting, surreal nature of celebrity through the specific lens of someone who still desperately holds on to their Texas roots or small-town values.
Oh, wow. That changes everything. It's not a story about how hard it is to be famous. It's a story about the universal struggle to keep your soul intact when the environment around you is completely soulless.
Beautifully deduced, yes. It becomes a narrative about identity crisis.
And everyone relates to that.
Every listener, regardless of their background, understands the feeling of being thrust into an unfamiliar, hostile environment and trying to remember who they are. The artist scales a universal human struggle up to a massive, glamorous stage.
This is amazing.
And the technical mechanics we discuss, the internal rhymes generating breathless anxiety, the extended metaphors translating the isolation, are the precise tools they use to articulate the whiplash between the small-town root and the celebrity reality.
It's a masterful manipulation of the listener's empathy, but honestly, it creates a deeply unique problem for us, the audience, and the AI recognizes this, which brings us to the most philosophical mandate in the entire blueprint.
The persona paradox.
Yes. The AI dictates that we must find critical essays and academic analyses that discuss the distinct narrative personas created by each artist and how they navigate the incredibly blurry line between autobiography and fiction.
This is where the architecture becomes purely psychological.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I want to introduce an analogy here because this concept feels like walking into a funhouse.
Okay, a funhouse.
When an artist uses highly detailed confessional lyrics or delivers a track dripping with poetic realism, we, the audience, are biologically hardwired to assume we are reading their actual diary.
We assume it's 100% true.
We assume the song is a one-to-one reflection of their literal daily reality, but the AI is explicitly telling us to step back and look for narrative personas. I have to push you on this because it feels like a betrayal.
I get that.
Is a narrative persona just a polite, sanitized academic term for lying beautifully?
This raises an important question, and it is entirely understandable why it feels like a betrayal. We crave authenticity from our artists, but framing a persona as a lie relies on a very rigid, literal definition of truth.
Okay, I'm listening.
We have to ask a foundational question. What is the actual utility of art? Is the purpose of a song to provide a sworn, notarized affidavit of chronological facts? Or is its purpose to convey an overwhelming emotional truth?
Well, I mean, I would argue emotional truth is the only thing that matters in a song.
And literal facts are very frequently the enemy of emotional truth. Let's use your funhouse mirror analogy.
Sure.
A standard flat mirror on your bathroom wall shows you exactly what you look like. It is 100% factual. It gives you the literal dimensions of your face.
True.
A funhouse mirror, however, intentionally distorts reality. It stretches your reflection, it compresses it, it warps the angles.
It manipulates the image to create a specific reaction, usually laughter or disorientation.
Right. But what if an artist uses that funhouse mirror, not to deceive you, but to highlight a singular, microscopic emotional feature and make it visible to the back row of a stadium?
Oh, that's a cool way to think about it.
If an artist experiences a momentary flash of intense, irrational jealousy, the literal truth is that the feeling passed in 5 minutes, and they went about their day. but that doesn't make a good song.
No, it makes a very boring journal entry.
So the artist steps in front of the funhouse mirror. They take that 5-minute flash of jealousy, they distort it, they exaggerate it, they blow it up to Godzilla-sized proportions, and they build a 4-minute sonic universe where that jealousy is the only thing that exists. They have created a persona.
A distilled, highly concentrated avatar of themselves.
Exactly. The narrative persona isn't a lie. It is a hyper-focused extraction of one part of the artist's psyche. And practically speaking, it also serves as a necessary, impenetrable, protective shield.
Wait, a shield from the audience.
From the audience, from the media, from the world. Think about the massive level of fame inherent in the celebrity motif we just discussed.
Okay.
If these songwriters actually gave the public their unfiltered, 100% autobiographical, literal diaries, they would be consumed alive. They would have no private inner life remaining.
They'd be totally exposed.
The persona allows the songwriter to deliver devastatingly real social commentary or navigate complex adult themes without exposing the actual vulnerable coordinates of their everyday reality to the tabloid press.
So they can bleed all over the track, but they control exactly how the blood splatters.
Exactly.
The heartbreak driving the song is entirely real, but they might completely invent the location of the argument, change the color of the metaphorical scarf, or stitch 3 different toxic ex-partners into one monolithic villain for the sake of a tighter, more compelling narrative arc.
Yes. The emotion is pure, the set dressing is fiction. And the reason the AI explicitly demands academic analysis to untangle this web is because these specific artists are terrifyingly good at their jobs.
They are.
The tools we outline, Crowell's weary, poetic realism, Musgrave's disarming, observational conversationalist tone, Swift's meticulous confessional architecture. These mechanics are expertly engineered to bypass the listener's logic and make the fiction feel indisputably, viscerally real.
It genuinely feels like an intimacy trap. They deploy these brilliant structural mechanics to make us feel like we are sharing a profound private secret with them on a front porch. But in reality, we are standing behind a velvet rope, looking at a highly curated museum-quality exhibit of their emotions.
That is the ultimate paradox of elite songwriting. The more raw, effortless, and authentic a song feels to your nervous system, the more likely it is that an incredibly rigorous, highly constructed narrative persona is delivering it.
It's almost ironic.
Crafting the illusion of unvarnished authenticity requires a staggering amount of calculated architectural effort.
Which requires extended metaphors, carefully deployed internal rhymes, and structural bridges acting as emotional fulcrums. The invisible scaffolding is suddenly becoming incredibly visible.
It's all there in the blueprint.
But here's the catch. We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing words. We've dissected the lyrics, the metaphors, the conversational phrasing, and the psychological personas.
Right.
But words on a page are just a poem. A poem does not become a song until you subject it to sound, which pushes us into the final, massive phase of the AI's research blueprint, the sonic architecture and historical lineage.
The AI is relentless in its thoroughness here.
Right.
It instructs us to compare and contrast the 3 artists' approaches to melody and rhythm, noting how these musical elements support their narrative delivery and emotional resonance.
Okay, so what does this all mean? I want to play devil's advocate for a moment.
Go for it.
Are rhythm and melody truly co-authors of the narrative, or are they just the delivery vehicles? Are they just the flatbed truck that transports the heavy lyrical cargo from the artist's brain to the listener's ear?
I see where you're going.
Consider this. If you take a highly detailed lyric about small-town life, and you pair it with a traditional country melody, let's say a mournful pedal steel guitar and a slow acoustic strum, versus taking that exact same lyric and overlaying it onto a fast, pulsing, psychedelic synth-pop rhythm, the literal words have not changed one iota.
Right, the text is the same.
Does the story itself actually change?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the typography of the words remains identical, but the emotional resonance, which the AI astutely identifies as the target metric, shifts entirely.
Okay.
And because the transfer of emotion is the fundamental objective of songwriting, yes, the sonic architecture fundamentally alters the meaning of the story.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. How does a tempo change alter the meaning of a noun?
Consider the psychological concept of cognitive dissonance in music. Let's say an artist writes a lyric that is devastatingly sad, highly confessional, and steeped in introspective maturity.
Very heavy stuff.
Right. If they pair that lyric with a slow, minor key acoustic melody, the music agrees with the lyric. It is a harmonious, earnest piece of art. The sonic architecture confirms the sadness of the words. It's straightforward.
Sad words plus sad music equals a sad story.
But what happens when you take those identical, devastating lyrics and inject them into an upbeat, driving 120 beats per minute pop rhythm?
Oh, wow.
What if you wrap that trauma in shimmering psychedelic synthesizers that demand physical movement?
You create the classic crying in the club phenomenon. Your body is compelled to dance, but your brain is actively processing grief.
Exactly. The rhythm and melody intentionally clash with the narrative. This creates an incredibly complex emotional resonance. The story is no longer just, I am sad.
Right, it transforms.
The sonic architecture changes the story to, I am devastated, but I am desperately trying to put on a brave face in public, or I am in so much pain that I'm actively dissociating from reality through frantic movement.
That is wild.
The tempo and the melody aren't just flatbed trucks. They are active, manipulative forces that tell the listener how the persona feels about the words they are singing. They provide the subconscious context that the lyrics alone cannot convey.
That is a revelation. The sonic choices act as the unspoken body language of the narrative persona.
That's a great way to put it.
And that incredible realization leads us to the culmination of the AI's blueprint. Steps 7 and 8 mandate an exploration of the interconnected historical influences, singling out one specific node, Rodney Crowell's impact on contemporary Nashville songwriting.
Yes.
It is fascinating that out of these three massive figures, the AI positions Crowell as the root of the evolutionary tree.
The AI's historical mapping is remarkably precise. To understand the ecosystem Swift and Musgraves operate in today, you have to understand the ground Crowell had to break decades prior.
The pioneer.
Exactly. As we discussed, without Crowell applying his literary, poetic realism approach and gaining serious traction within the Americana and outlaw movements in the 1970s and 80s, the commercial appetite for complex, nuanced songwriting in mainstream country simply wouldn't exist.
He had to prove to the executives in the Nashville machine that an audience would actually pay money to be challenged, not just pacified.
He proved that introspective maturity was commercially viable. He raised the intellectual lyrical bar for an entire genre.
He changed the rules.
By cementing that literary standard into the foundation of Nashville, he essentially terraformed the environment. He created a musical ecosystem where, decades later, a young Taylor Swift could arrive in town with an acoustic guitar and be actively rewarded by the industry for crafting highly detailed confessional storytelling, rather than being forced to turn out generic sanitized party anthems.
He built the house that allowed her to become the architect. And by extension, that same terraformed environment created the space for an artist like Kacey Musgraves. She could step into a country music genre that already respected complex lyricism, firmly plant her boots in that traditional foundation, and feel secure enough to start weaving in alien psychedelic sounds and pointed social commentary without being immediately exiled from the community.
It is a stunning historical domino effect.
It really is.
The AI synthesizes this perfectly in its final mandate. Evaluate each artist's unique contribution to modern songwriting, highlighting how their narrative voices have shaped their respective genres.
They are all extracting tools from the exact same historical toolkit. The breathless internal rhymes, the expansive metaphors, the tension between small-town roots, and the blinding glare of celebrity. But they are wielding those tools to construct three completely distinct, genre-defining narrative personas.
Crowell lays the literary, realistic foundation, proving that country music can handle the gritty truth of complex adult themes. Swift inherits that narrative complexity, applies it to the structural architecture of pop music, and scales the confessional form to a globally dominant celebrity level.
And then Musgraves.
And Musgraves then surveys that massive, genre-fluid, globalized environment and decides to bring it all back down to the front porch, utilizing a disarming conversational voice to ground experimental, psychedelic sounds and heavy social critiques.
It is a breathtaking, interconnected ecosystem of human creativity, and seeing it completely reverse-engineered, categorized, and laid out with clinical precision by an artificial intelligence is, well, it is surreal.
It forces a massive paradigm shift in how we consume art. It strips away the illusion of pure spontaneity and forces us to acknowledge and appreciate the rigorous, invisible scaffolding supporting the music we listen to every single day.
Which brings us to the end of what has been a truly staggering deep dive into the anatomy of a song.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We started by defining the very voices that speak to us in the dark. Musgraves acting as the wide-angle conversationalist, using casual banter to ground mind-bending sounds, Swift operating as the confessional architect, weaponizing the musical bridge to force an evolution from adolescent certainty into adult complexity, and Crowell standing as the literary outlaw, applying poetic realism to strip the romantic myth away from the gritty reality of Americana.
We examine the physics of the toolkit, how internal rhyme manipulates the listener's nervous system to create momentum, and how extended metaphors construct virtual realities that allow hyper-specific personal confessions to be felt as universal experiences.
We walked through the funhouse mirror of the persona paradox, realizing that the most emotionally authentic art often requires a highly curated, protective avatar to deliver it safely.
A protective shield.
Exactly. And finally, we mapped the historical shockwaves, recognizing how Crowell's insistence on literary maturity in Nashville laid the bedrock that allowed artists like Swift and Musgraves to continuously mutate and elevate their respective genres.
It's all connected.
Understanding the exact metrics of this blueprint doesn't destroy the soul of the music. It makes us infinitely more active, appreciative listeners. We aren't just staring blindly at the paint anymore. We know exactly where the load-bearing walls are hidden.
We can finally appreciate the sheer architectural genius of the structure.
But I cannot let you, the listener, leave without offering one final, intensely provocative thought.
Oh, here we go.
Something to chew on that stems not from the artists we discussed, but from the metadata of the source document itself.
The timestamp of the AI log.
Yes. If you look at the very bottom of the AI's output, right after it outlines this massive, intricate web of human psychology, literary devices, and historical lineage, the user clicks Start Research, and the Gemini model replies, Completed. Ready in a few minutes.
Wow.
Think about the sheer gravity of that. It performed this colossal synthesis, this flawless mapping of the deepest mechanics of human emotion in minutes, perhaps seconds.
A level of analysis that would take a human musicologist months to compile, synthesize, and articulate.
Months, if not years. So here is the existential question we are left with. If a machine, a string of code, devoid of a heartbeat, devoid of a soul, having never experienced a single second of heartbreak, nostalgia, or the surreal isolation of fame, if that machine can perfectly map, categorize, and synthesize the deeply human art of songwriting,
It's a heavy thought.
if it can instantly pinpoint the exact structural mechanism required to evolve a narrator from adolescent romance to introspective maturity, and clinically dissect the nuances of poetic realism, what does that tell us about the predictability of our own emotions?
It challenges the very concept of human uniqueness.
Are our deepest, most profound feelings just recognizable data points? Is the transcendent magic of a soul-bearing confessional song simply a highly effective, mathematically quantifiable algorithm of extended metaphors, internal rhyme, and cognitive dissonance?
Is it all just a formula?
Exactly. Is the heartbreak we feel when the bridge hits just a predictable biological reaction to a well-executed structural trap? Or, despite the AI's terrifying ability to perfectly print out the diagnostic X-ray of a song, is there still a ghost in the machine?
The unquantifiable spark.
Is there some volatile, unquantifiable spark of the human spirit that no academic research plan and no artificial intelligence can ever truly capture? Just something to think about the next time you put your headphones on, close your eyes, and let the music play.